Welcome to the week 3 of the hands-on on patent search. So far we have understood the basic aspects of what are different databases, particularly the public databases, the relevance of keyword search, how classification search is done from a theoretical perspective, and why do we sometimes do a combination search of keywords and classification. In this week we will understand the practical aspects of the keyword search, IPC search and also the combination search. So, the concepts that we would be covering in this lecture are commercial databases and their utility, hands-on practical aspects of patent search using keyword, classification and combination search. Databases come with different aspects. Databases are basically information pools of various aspects such as either bibliographic data, image data or even sometimes curated data. Databases differ in terms of their content, in terms of what are the years of coverage, what is the subject matter, and also some of the databases are also updated in terms of providing the backup data. Accessibility of a data is very important from the point of view of whether the database is available publicly or it comes as a part of a subscription. Many databases today also provide technical support in terms of providing user enhanced data. The mode of access of databases can be in various forms. Online is the more preferable form these days because of the digital revolution. Many databases are available offline as CD-ROMs and in other forms. Sometimes databases are available as part of network. So, today databases are more relevantly used in relation to patent search. Let us examine some of the examples of some of the commercial databases. These are some of the different commercial databases available for patent searches. Total Patent is one, PatBase is another database, Orbit is one other database which provides patent data, Derwent Innovation, WIPS Global, PatSeer, AmberSite, PatSnap. These are a few examples of the commercial databases that are available on subscription. There are several differences between commercial and free databases. Now, free databases provide only limited information in terms of the bibliographic data. The disclosure information in terms of the full text information is also limited. In some, only abstracts are provided. Gazette information is something which is again limited in terms of the public databases. Often changes or corrections can appear in the new editions. Typically, free databases are more simple and basic, and of course, do not permit searches like the commercial databases. So, there are different commercial databases, and today commercial databases offer a wide range of solutions. The essential difference between the commercial databases and the free databases is that commercial databases often provide a collection of patent information from various patent offices. Today, we have commercial databases providing anywhere between 50 different patent office information to up to 100. So, therefore, you can imagine millions of documents are available for search. Hence, there is also better searchable information, and also retrieving of data is also quite elaborated. They also provide a lot of value added services in terms of the analysis and visualization tools, where you can actually draw graphs, pie charts, you can prepare a landscape, and also they also provide a greater text mining ability in terms of providing various links not only to the patent family information, they also provide information in relation to non-patent literature. So, therefore, there is a seamless link that commercial databases offer, and generally are user friendly in terms of the use of information. Today, commercial databases are also providing what we call sequence searches, structure searches, citation analysis, and also a very integrated access to in relation to different source of data. One example of the difference between a free database to a commercial database is what is represented in this illustration, where we are looking at something like a simple bibliographic reference. On the left panel is what you see the patent application from eSpaceNet, vis-a-vis you are looking at the commercial database. For instance, let us say WIPS Global. This is how you could see the information provided in the illustration, where you can see the bibliographic information all into one page. This is now in the case of commercial database, you have links to all other information, whether in terms of the application history, all at one place, the details in relation to publication, and also you can look at the current status and also the other information that is available. This also provides a very user enhanced feature in terms of looking at all the images in one go. So, for instance, if you are looking at figures and looking at novelty of an invention and ascertaining that, this provides an easier way of looking at it. Besides that, it also provides you the exemplary claim, the details in relation to whether the examination request has been filed for it, and the legal status. So, all of this information can be seen in one go. So, many a time for the patent searchers, time is an important requirement in terms of gathering as much information on a particular patent, and so subscribed databases provide you this sort of an option. Also, the other information that you can get is the family and the family legal status. You can also get the details in relation to backward and forward citations in terms of the value of the patent information. So, moving on, we will be looking at the practical aspects of keyword and classification search. One of the areas that we are beginning with today is the aspect of mechanical engineering, which is the simplest of all in terms of understanding patents, because most of the times mechanical and electrical arts belonging to the area called the predictable arts. So, let us take an example today to understand this. Before we go into the specific aspects of the mechanical search, let us recall what are the different steps in patent searching. The first part of it is what we call assembling the keyword and the keyword index for the target area, followed by looking at the appropriate database for search. Now, one can go back and forth in terms of understanding whether a database is suitable, or one needs to actually go into performing an enhanced search. Once the database provides you the results, it is important to evaluate the hits, based on which it is possible that at times we may need to go back and do the refining of the search, in which case we generate the specific hits. And so, once you assemble the total number of hits, you actually come about with the final list of hits. And why is this important? It is important many a time because it depends on the area in which you are actually conducting the search. A given area may be representing a whole lot of information already available in the public domain as well as in patents. So, depending on the type of information that we are searching for, often it is important to screen out the hits for irrelevant data, for those which are relevant to, then looking at something which is relevant to the specific category and then pooling in the hits. So, many a time when you conduct search, we get a lot of false results out of it. So, those false hits are taken out and then we pool the data and get the final list. So, this is where one should recall that we have already understood the aspects of using truncations and operators. So, these help us to actually home down the specific results of the search. And so, therefore, after we assemble the finite list of hits, we actually go in for what we call the analysis of patents. So, the analysis of patents can be done just to simply understand something as simple as a patentability search to actually conducting a patent landscape. So, therefore, the purpose of search will also lead us to identifying what are the final list of hits that we would evaluate. Today, subscribed databases provide you the option of drawing different analytical tools in terms of providing graphs information, providing pie charts. So, patent search is a learning process. No search is complete in that sense. Every week you conduct the search, you will get new hits. So, one important thing a patent searcher must know is to put the start date of the search and the end date of the search. So, typically when we look at information that is generated out from patent search, either you create a Word document or you create an Excel file, it is important to put the start date of the search and the end date of the search. Not only that, it is also important to identify what is the database you are using. The results will differ with respect to each database. Also, the categories in which you are searching is also important. Either you use title or abstract or claims. Many a time when you are looking at specific hits, you also include claim search. So, you include title, abstract and claim search. So, therefore, patent search is a continuously iterative process, and refining of results is a key to understand the value that can come out of this sort of data. Let us understand one of the important areas of a mechanical invention and understand how to go about with the keyword search. Switchgear is one area where a lot of improvements have been done, and let us understand how to go about using this as a search and looking at the results. So, typically in an electric power system, switchgear is composed of electrical disconnect switches, fuses or circuit breakers that are used to control, protect and isolate electrical equipment. Now, this is used both to de-energize equipment, so that work can be done, and it also helps in clearing faults downstream. So, given this area of invention, one needs to understand what is the purpose of the invention, whether it is a device or we are just looking at the design. Is it that we are looking for a process or a product? What are the components of the invention? In which way is the invention being used? And what should be the best terms that should be used for identifying different inventions in this area? So, when we assemble what we call the keyword index with respect to switchgear, these are the various options that we get. So, switchgear, breaking the word switchgear, circuit break the other component, relay or switch. Now, switchgears also come in different forms in terms of the gas that is used, for instance sulfur hexafluoride gas way back in the earlier times, to different innovations in this particular area. So, you can have something which is a specific type of a switchgear, you can have a very generic term like an air switchgear, all of this. So, what do? You create a nested term and then look for a search. So, for instance, this is one example of a string that is prepared. So, TTL refers to title, is the abbreviation. Now, in one particular instance, you are taking switchgear itself as a normal word, that is switchgear with a gap, circuit break, and then you are looking at the interventions of it either with sulfur hexafluoride, SF6 or air or gas. So, what is it that we are doing in this instance? We are looking at the various synonyms that are used in relation to switchgear and also the technical terms which are represented in literature, including the use of some generic terms. So, one can find the use of synonyms either through dictionaries or also look at the equivalence in a particular technical area. This is the search that we are today undertaking in relation to the USPTO. So, what would you do? You would go to the USPTO website. You have two options available. One is the full text image information and information. The other is the patent application information. So, this is the one with respect to the application, and then you look at it from the point of view of the full text search, which is the. So, when you go to click on the advanced option, you get the query window, and this is where, if you remember, we prepared that nested list, word list, that we are actually pasting it into this particular query window, where we are selecting for the title. So, when in the query window we have put this particular string, we are then looking at the option of selecting the years. So, for instance, let us say we are looking at 1976 to current information on the full text patents available at the USPTO on switchgear, which have the implementation of one of these. So, when you hit it against the database, you get certain results. So, there are different keyword truncations that are available in relation to the database. So, one can select out that in terms of using the different field codes. So, when you look for results at the USPTO on this particular string, you are getting a list of 256 patents. And normally the hits that are presented at the USPTO are 50 hits at a time. So, you would have a listing of all the patent numbers and the titles provided. So, once you look at each of those patents, you can select out some of the titles and look for the information in relation to each of those patents. So, that is how you can actually assemble your set. Now, for instance, let us say the patent data set is really large. What do you do then? It is possible that you can refine it further. And how do you refine it further? You look at only specific instances of those patents in relation to certain implementation, and that is how one can actually look at. Normally, as a beginner, what would one do is to look at least a pilot set of patents and identify whether those patents are relevant to the area or not, and then identify if there is a need for truncation and other operators to be used, so that some of the data which is not representative of the area can be taken out from that hit list. So, therefore, one can do that way and also get hold of the details of each of those patents. So, once the final list of patents is assembled together, one can go for what we call an in-depth review of the selected patents. And why is that important? It is important because this is the way you can understand what are the different implementations of the invention, what are the improvements that have been done in relation to switchgear, and where is it that the patents are going to be providing the advantage in a given area. Since this switchgear is from the mechanical area, it is also very relevant to look at the drawing sheets. So, to look at what are the different modifications that have been done to the switchgear and how is the area represented in terms of the improvements. Many a time we look at the different embodiments of the invention to understand the implementation of the invention, and so therefore, it is also important to review the specification and the claims. So, understanding the technical field is important. Not only that, based on the background that is presented in the invention in terms of the problems presented in the prior art, one can understand what is the modification done on this particular switchgear patent, and then look at the different embodiments. So, the brief description of the drawings and the detailed description will provide us the details of the modification. Understanding the claims is important because that is where you can understand the claims in terms of the specific invention, which define the scope of the legal right. Many a time it is also important to look at the cited classifications in terms of the country classification as well as the IPC. And so, therefore, this category is also important because the examiner will pick up the relevant IPC for the representation. This can be a good starting point again to run a specific classification search on a patent database. For instance, you can go back to the same patent database website, the USPTO, and look at full text using the IPC search. So, let us understand further the aspects of the patent search using classification. So, since the area is many a time since the area is well represented, you can actually have the CPC code or the IPC code and use that code as a beginning point for looking at search. For instance, in this case, let us look at the idea of the CPC classification. So, today the tools are available such that the codes can be also taken out from the scheme. So, if you put CPC scheme switchgear into the window, one would get the different set of patents in relation to the CPC scheme. In this, if you can see, the different classes are represented already. So, you have H class and you have some in the G class. So, if you click on this particular entry, you can get the access to the sub scheme or classification page as well. So, there is something called the IPC catchword index, which provides a very user friendly searchable index in relation to the classification and using the common language terms. So, here you have the catchphrases where you can look at this particular information, and here the different classes are presented as what you can see, and specifically we were searching for gas insulated switchgears, and so this is shown in this particular color. it belongs to H02B 13/035. One can actually click on that and access the details of the available in relation to. Many a time it is also important to look at the CPC definition to understand the depth of the information that is represented in relation to a particular area. For instance, if you are looking at H01H, this represent electrical switches, relays, selectors and emergency protective devices. Now, if you look at the individual subclasses within that, it provides you information specifically in relation to certain implementations, and so that is how one can actually look at the entire information. So, if you are looking for, let us say, arrangement of switch gears, it will belong to one particular subclass. So, therefore, this is how one can actually go for scanning of relevant information in relation to each class or a subclass. Now, it also is important for us to understand how is the implementation of the invention going to be relevant. For instance, we are looking at a switchgear, whether it is structurally associated or enclosed, for instance in a casing or a cubicle. So, this is how you can actually understand with the different subclasses how the organization of the invention can actually happen. So, the patent search strategy using classification can be done with respect to the full text database. Today, we also have different options available at individual databases to search the data more seamlessly and quickly. Another way to look at classification search is to even use the option of what we have the quick search button, which is available as a link. Herein you can actually provide the specific classification code. Remember, we have looked at the different individual classes and the subclasses. So, for instance, if you are looking at just the arrangement of switch gears, one can pick up that particular code and input that into the query data. And you can also select the type of classification that you are looking at and also the database and hit the button search to get the detail. So, this is how you can get the results of the entire set of patterns. Now, remember, in the earlier instance when we did a keyword search for using the title search, we got a whole number of hits, about 250 odd hits. Here in this case, we are looking at a very narrow search of this particular subclass. Look at the number of patents that we have got in this case, 32 patents. These are very specific to this particular area. So, in this listing, one can look at each individual patents and understand what are the implementations of that particular invention. Of course, one can also look at the aspect of the advanced search and also carry out the CPC query in relation to that particular. So, in the query window earlier we had used a title search. Now, in the same query window you can also use classification search to look at the data. So, this is one example of that. So, after putting in the code in the classification search in the query window, when you hit the search button, you have got the set of patterns. So, accessing each patent can be done post the you can download this data into an Excel sheet and then look at the details of the particular application. So, while you can search this on the full text database, one can also look at published patent applications from the app FT database, which is also the applications full text and image databases are available at the USPTO. So, you can conduct a search at the patent application full text and image database by using the query window. Now, this also offers different Boolean search operators to undertake the search. So, here we are again looking at H02B 13/00 and we are looking at CPC as a classification. This is how you assemble the hits after the results are. So, one can actually review the patents that are available and look at. You will find that there is certain difference in the full text vis-a-vis the published patent applications, then it would mean that some new data is also coming up on that particular set of patents. So, it is always beneficial to look at even the published patent applications, because that represents the 18th month publication at each of the patent offices. One important consideration that all patent searchers must keep in mind is the need for broadening of patent search. And why is this important? This is important because it all depends on the results that you get from the initial search. sometimes the scope of the search can be very narrow, at other times you need to actually broaden the search. For instance, we are looking at inventions only in relation to switchgear. Maybe we are looking only at the aspect of SF6 type, sulfur hexafluoride type switchgears. Sometimes you may really want to broaden the search into any of the different types of gas implementations in relation to that invention, in which case there is a need for broadening of the search. So, how does broadening of a patent search help? The broadening of a patent search would help you by improving the scope of patents listed under a particular area. Today, many databases provide an extended list of patent families. Not only that, many commercial databases are being updated with information from newer patent offices, which means availability of resources also being enriched. So, in which case we can have more number of patents listed in the particular database. Today, country based search is just not enough, it is also important to undertake foreign patent search. So, we have understood the aspects of foreign patent search. So, it is not only important to do a country based patent search, many a time we need to look at the data available with foreign patent offices, and so therefore, many patent offices provide you very good information. For instance, if you are running a search through a European patent office, or similarly many other patent databases provide you an extended search provided with respect to different patent offices. There is also an instance of where many of the databases are actually no longer classifying certain patents, and so therefore, it is very important to be aware of the changes that are happening at the individual patent database collection. There is also a reclassification in relation to kind codes. Today, what is a B class is recoded into a C class. So, therefore, in terms of the kind code. So, it is also important to understand some of these changes that happen at the different patent database collection, and so keep in mind this particular aspect of broadening of the patent search. One example that I can give you on the relevance of broadening a patent search is many times we are not looking at specific area of inventions, we are looking at certain areas, and for instance, you are looking at something in relation to plants which are saline tolerant, that is plants which can grow in salt conditions. From the area, it can be easily understood that normally we are looking at all plants and we are looking at saline tolerance. One aspect of the area is such that when plants are saline tolerant, they can also be drought tolerant. So, when you are looking at broadening of the patent search, for instance, here let us say we are looking at the entire set of proteins in that particular area. It may be also relevant for us to understand that this could be also a relevant hit for that with respect to drought tolerance. So, that is how you go ahead and actually broaden the search. Now, what can be drought tolerant could be also cold tolerant. So, you go into distal areas of search where you are actually pooling in the entire data set. How does that help us? It helps us because we understand that the same protein set is induced under, let us say, salt conditions. It is also induced under drought and it is also induced under cold. This may be a very good way of looking at a set of proteins or even a metabolic pathway which is relevant under all these different conditions. So, therefore, broadening of a patent search is always useful to really look at the distal set of patents in a given area. So, in the next instance, we will be looking at the lecture which will deal with the practical aspects of chemical search. So, the practical demonstration of the keyword search and the classification search is what we are taking up in this particular lecture.